And welcome back to even more unwrapping. Let's see if we can share some of those UV islands with each other so that we don't have to unwrap it uniquely. So for instance, those two pieces here look completely identical to me, or at least almost, which means that that bit here could be shared with that. We can always just later overlay it like this and then have the same kind of texture on that piece that we have here. And if we just flip it vertically, you will not even notice it, because let's say we have a scratch here, that will mean then that that scratch that we see from that side will be visible only here on that side, if you know what I mean. So bottom line, we don't need to unwrap that piece, and I'm just gonna put it over here for now. And I will then take that bit of the barrel and put it over here. And let's see about that piece next. This is the muzzle brake. Let's continue with it. Let's pack it. And I don't know why, but this piece here in the middle, or in the inside of the barrel, looks really huge in comparison with the outside. So I don't know if there was some sort of a mistake with the rescale elements. Sometimes it happens, but what it means for sure is that we're just gonna scale it down a little bit. So let's have it around here somewhere. And as for the actual muzzle brake itself, let's put it somewhere around here. That bit here I'm gonna put right over it. And then those remaining bits, I'm going to pack them again. This piece here is all the way at the bottom of the barrel, or at the end of the barrel, so we will hardly ever see that. We can actually just fill it here, and that would be already enough, because there's going to be some ambient occlusion anyway, so it's all black. And that piece, let's fill it in here. And as for these two, let's have them here at the side. Actually, we can have this one over here. And as for this one, yeah, let's make the maximum use of our space here. We flip that. Yeah, that looks okay. Next, let's take the front side. And I also want to fill it here into this empty space. As for this piece, seems like we can make some good use of that space here. And those two bits, let's see if we can add them here. Seems to be fine like that. Actually, let's put that here on a horizontal axis. Is this stuff here in the inside? I'm gonna scale it a little bit. It doesn't really matter if it's a little stretch there. This seems to fit good here. And that piece, I'm going to flip it vertically and horizontally so that it fits good in here. And as for the rest of the pieces, let's make some use of this one here. And also fill this empty space here with some more UV islands, like that one here for instance. Already fills it pretty good. And this one here. And let me just pack the rest again. Let me take this one here and just vertically align it here. Add a bit more space. I just noticed that this thing here looked a little distorted, so I'm gonna align it about these pieces. Let's take this one and flip it vertically. And as for this bit, I'm gonna put it here. And this one here, one of these small annoying ones, as I like to think of them. And since we're already at the front side, let's take these bits that are remaining, those two, and also give them the pack button. And let's see where we can make some space for it. This one looks pretty good here. And that piece, maybe we can just bring it down a little bit more here to the side actually. Around here. Leaves us with some more space here. And that bit, going to put it in here, or actually that might be a little too tight there, so I'm gonna instead put it here, or actually here is good. Let's put it here. This one, let's see about this piece here again. Now let's put it here. That looks good. And as a next piece, let's take some of these remaining elements here. This one, for instance. Let's also pack it. And let's put it here. And as for this piece here, we will actually never see it ever. So that means that we can jump out of the UV editor and actually delete this complete face here. And as for that piece, I want to take this vert here and here on the other side and make a edge there, because we only ever gonna see this face here clipping through there. So as for the rest, when you double click on anything here like that, you can get to this stuff here, and we also just gonna delete it because we're never gonna see it. So that piece is already up here. And as for this element, let's take it next. Let's pack it. And maybe we can fill it here into these blanks. So let's have a look where we best put it. This element could be fitting here. And this one, nah, let's just leave it here. And that leaves us with those two individual bits here. Gonna put it here. And let's give the rest another packing. This one looks pretty good here. Get the most out of the space. And as for these bits, let's see if we can put them in here. This could go there, and this one, we're gonna have it here. And this bit here, I suppose we should open up text tools and align it so that this is actually straight, like that. And I see that we have a few empty spaces here always in those elements. So let's see if we can, or actually we have it also up here. So since this is one piece that belongs together, let's put it here. However, not that piece, it's too big. So I'm gonna take this and add it here. This piece, I'm gonna put it here, and the other bits could go here. And next I'm gonna take this piece here and add it also here on the top where we still have some space. Fits pretty good there. And these elements, which will be that here, let's fill them in here. This piece could go here. And next, let me take the bolt carrier, this element here, and also pack it. And it looks like we could put it here. It looks like we still have some good space here for it. Gonna have it here. And one thing to also note about that is that we have this element here, which we will see when the animation plays, like we will eventually see it. So it's almost as if that piece doesn't really require to have a whole lot of texture space. So what I was thinking we could do is to just later overlay it here with this UV island, so that basically all these faces here on top, this texture gets the same as this element here. So that means we can save some texture space on it, and we're just also gonna put it here for now. Later we're gonna put it exactly where it belongs. And for now, we're just gonna take those remaining bits that we have here on that bolt carrier and lay them out. Let's take this piece here. This is this little handle. And let's see where we can make the best out of it. Maybe we can add it here. Let's take these pieces for the moment, put them somewhere else. Actually, let's flip that vertically here. Makes it easier to fit it in here. So I'm gonna pull that down a bit here and this a little bit up. And then these pieces these pieces don't have enough space here now unless we just flip them like that. And that looks pretty good. Now we have also filled this here pretty good. And this bit here is something that we will barely ever see. So I'm gonna just scale it down. And the same actually applies to this piece here, which doesn't really need to have the full textile density. So I'm just gonna scale it down a little bit as well. And as a next thing, let's just grab everything again that we have left to put in our UV map, and let's pack it. And that doesn't even look so bad. I mean, this is still quite a few bits, but with the remaining space that we have, let's really try to make the best out of it so that we don't need to take everything again like this and scale it down like that to free up even more space, because that's really the last thing that we want. It could be that we have to, but really only in the worst case scenario. So let's try to be optimistic that all that will fit in. And next I'm gonna take here the leaf of the rear side. And as for that bit here on the top of it, this is where we have all our numbers, if you remember, the high poly. So one thing that I want to do with it is to actually scale it up a little bit, just so that we have some extra texture for it when those numbers come on, and that this looks as crisp as it can possibly be. I'm gonna put it all here on the top, and this bit here is at the bottom. I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna scale it down a little bit, because that's something that we will probably barely see. And as for these horizontal bits, I'm gonna pack it again. Let's see if that did a good job, and maybe that was a little bit too tight. So I'm gonna take it again and I'm gonna put it to 0.03 and pack it again. And that looks better. So maybe we can take these bits and put them here, and this one I'm gonna put it here. And make the most out of our available texture space here. These elements, I'm gonna leave them here. And then we have these bits. Let's see where we put them. Maybe this could be a little tighter here. Let's put it here. Put that down a tiny bit. And that leaves us with some space here on the top, but actually not enough for that. So I'm gonna put these bits in there instead. This one here and this one vertically over here. And these small bits, gonna put them here. And as for these two, let's just leave them here. Let's see again. Nah, that doesn't fit there. Okay, let's leave it here for now. And let's continue with the rear side here. I'm gonna take the remaining elements that we have on it. Also pack and bring it up here. And looks like the packing did a pretty decent job. So I'm going to just bring it all into a vertical order here, or actually horizontally. And one thing about it, we have this diamond pattern here on it, these little knobs. So I'm going to take this particular face where it's on, and I want to scale it up a little bit like that, so that this comes on really nice later. And as for the rest of it, I'm just gonna leave it exactly like it is. Like this stuff here, let's just leave it like that. Next, let me take the rear side switch here, this element. Bring it up. And as for that piece, looks like we should also align it. So I'm gonna select that edge. And as for these back faces here, we can definitely also just scale them down and save some texture space. So let's see where we can put all that. Gonna flip that here vertically. And that bit, maybe we can fit it in here pretty good. This bit, I'm going to put it over here. Still have some space. And these two, or these 4 bits here, I'm just gonna add them here again. And as for those remaining bits, let's see what we can do with it. Let's make the most out of these horizontal elements. They can fit pretty good over here. This one here and those bits, I'm going to add them also in that whole space here. And that seems to be pretty okay there. I think I forgot these elements earlier, so let's see where we put them. Some space here for it. And let's continue with those 2 elements here. And one thing to consider is that again we have some back-facing elements, those 2 here, which I want to keep. I don't want to delete this geometry there, because there is a little bit of natural space there in between the rear side where it's tucked in. But as long as we have a few pixels for the texture there, we don't really need to have it one-to-one as those elements here that really matter. So that leaves us with these things, and I'm just gonna pack it again. And let's see where we best put them. So I'm gonna put this element here and this one. Be nice to put it here, but we have some stuff in the way, so I'm gonna add it here. And this bit right above it. This bit I'm gonna put it here. And this fits pretty good in there like that. And let's see for this one here, let's fill out this space. Let's flip it vertically as well as horizontally here. And those remaining bits, let's see if we can fit that one in here as well. Put that down a bit here. Those ones a bit to the side. Looks okay there. And as for these remaining elements, let's also make some use of this space here first. This looks pretty okay here. This element is a little too big there. Or actually, if we take this one and put it over here, then we can unless we put that a bit more here to the side. some serious packing here. Now that we are at the pretty much at the end, we really have to work hard to make the maximum out of our remaining space. So let's just pack these elements that we still had there, and let's see where we can add them as well. This one over here and this one still have a whole lot of space here, but maybe we can put something else there later. So I'm going to continue what we built here and leave that space open here. Looks pretty okay. And let's see what we have next. For instance, this piece here, and it looks like the faces have a problem. They are facing into the inside. So with this element selected, I'm just going to flip them back to the outside, how they actually belong. And back to the unwrapping dialog. Let's pack this. And let's see what we can do with it. This piece here, for instance, we could put in there. And I'm going to put it here on the side. See if we can make some better use of this space here. So I'm going to edit here. And now as for these bits, let's take that one and add it in here. And those two remaining ones, I'm going to actually put that one, now that doesn't fit. Let's put it here. This one, let's rotate it and let's put it here. Next, I'm going to make another selection here on everything that's left. And fortunately, that's not a whole lot. So the first thing that I want to be working on is the trigger here. So let me just grab all that stuff and also pack it. And bring it up here. Gonna flip this here around so everything's horizontal again. And triggers usually tend to have this bit of an annoying shape that's kind of hard to work with, but I'm just gonna leave it like that and try to make some use of these bows that we have here. So I'm gonna fill it with some of our remaining UV islands here. Actually, let me put this piece in here as well, around there. And as for the remaining bits, let's just leave them here for now. And let's see where we can put that. So I'm gonna flip that around, and I think I'll put it here to the side like that. Take the other bits and flip them. And also flip this element. Or actually, let's leave it like this. Let's add it here. And then the next element would be this one here. Let's just take it and add it here where we still have some space on the top. And the other element would be that piece here. Actually, these two pieces. Let's take that one first, the small one. Also pack it, and let's see where we can get the most out of our remaining texture space here. try to fit it in here. That works pretty good. Over there. And that piece can go here. And as for this piece here, let's just make a selection on this whole element here of the barrel. And that selects everything here that we have left of it. But let's make sure to deselect this piece of the barrel that it's attached to. So I'm just going to press Alt and then make a selection which leaves us with this selection but deselects that stuff here. And let's also pack it. And let's see where we can put it. That big piece here, I'm just gonna leave it around there. And as for these smaller stripes, I'm gonna flip them over and put them here on the side. And those bits, let's add them here. And this one could go down here actually. And good news everybody, we're almost done. So as you can see, we only have a few bits left here. Mostly those screws and bolt heads, or actually only those. So let's pack them. And let's see where we still have space for them. Obviously we left a little bit of space here. So let's see if we can make some good use of it. You may ask yourself, why didn't we just take one of them and leave the rest, basically copy this UV information on all these other ones? Well, again, I just want to have some individual texture information on them so that we can have different kinds of oil leakage and scratches on it later. That's the only reason why. To have a more of a unique look. Gonna put this all here. And that stuff I'm gonna also add here. Let's make the most out of it. Looks pretty okay there. And then this bigger piece we can add here. And let's just take everything and pack it again. Let's see where we can fiddle those pieces in. And you may remember we still have a bit of space here, like all these things that left us with like some inside caps. But in that case, we can't fill it with everything, or more than one actually. So let's see where we can put that stuff. This here could go right there. And this one we're gonna have here. And again, I'm gonna pack everything. And as for our last pieces, let's just make a selection for everything that is looking like this here. Those horizontal stripes. And I'm actually gonna flip them around because I saw we still have a little bit of space down here. So let's make some use of it. Gonna add this piece here. Let's take another one. And let's make the most out of it. These pieces, let's also add them all here somehow. This can go here, and this piece is a little too big, but this smaller stripe or thinner stripe we can add there. This could be right there, and let's see if we can add those ones here, and that seems to work quite fine. And this bit we're gonna have it here. Should we? Nah, that's fine there. Okay. Let's see for the last bits. So this piece looks like it could go here. And that leaves us with those bits here. Let's see where we can put them. For instance, it looks like we have quite a bit of space in here. So that looks okay there. And these bits could probably also go somewhere around here. This bit can still fit in here, and then those two elements, or at least one of them, together with those circles, we're gonna add them in here. And as for those remaining 3 bits, well, actually this one here is a no-brainer, so I'm just gonna put it somewhere, really doesn't matter. And then those 2 remaining ones, this one here, and that one, gonna put it here. And at that point, it's usually a good idea to zoom in and make sure that nothing is overlapping, that we didn't really forget anything, that we really left enough space in between our individual UV islands. Just a general check on everything basically. And try to make as much space in between those individual bits here as possible. So I'm just gonna look through everything here and see if I can just make it as good as possible for when we are baking our maps later. And that was already worth it, because I just noticed that this piece here, I sort of have stuck in that piece, which would result in a very strange way of baking the normal map. So good thing we discovered it. Gonna put that stuff up here. A little bit more space here in between. This piece over here. This piece, let's bring it down a little bit more, which results in a bit more space here in between those pieces. This piece, let's bring it a bit here to the right. This here's our barrel element. I'm just gonna max out the space that we have here for it, because we're also going to share it with the other barrel element. For that, I'm going to reposition that stuff here quickly. So let's put that over here. And what does that leave us with? For instance, some of these bits here that we were unwrapping earlier with the cylindrical map haven't been properly welded here. you can see how these edges show green, and that indicates that there is a problem with the welding. So as you can see here, these things are basically loose verts, and we just want to make sure that we select everything that we have here at the very end, and then with Ctrl A, full selection in the vertex mode, we're just gonna weld everything so that we don't have any open elements there. So I'm just gonna put the threshold here to 0.001. I add an extra digit for that, and then hit the weld selected sub-object button. And now all these elements we know for sure are welded together. Another thing while I'm at it is that I'm gonna straighten this here. Kind of missed that earlier. So I'm just gonna make a loop selection and straighten it like this. And once again here, this barrel, let me select these faces here on the side, and I'm going to break them and push them over here so that this bakes as an individual UV island, and so does this here. That makes it nicer than here for the appearance of this shared element, so that this curve here doesn't get baked into this whole UV map here, like this whole UV island is what I mean. And that will result here in a perfect look on that barrel piece that we're just gonna lay over here as soon as we're here done with the rest of our things that we still have to do. And in particular, what we need to do is making sure that every UV island that we have here, like this or the whole receiver here, the upper receiver, that all these laid out pieces here have one particular smoothing group assigned to. So fortunately, we don't have to do this manually anymore like in previous days. Text Tools has a feature that does exactly this for us. And it's hidden here under the tools, smoothing groups from UV shells. So let's click it and see what happens. What it does is it adds an added poly on top that takes care of all our smoothing groups. So if I toggle this here, you can see how this changes here. Like this is how it was before. And with this on top of our stack, we have one smoothing group here for this UV island. And the same applies to the whole object here. Like, let's see here, you can see we have different smoothing groups all over the place here. And this just takes this UV island, makes one out of it, and the same goes for these here. So it's a really cool feature that saves us a lot of time. And another thing that it does, it reveals when we have some problems with our smoothing group. So for instance, that here doesn't look normal to me. That looks really strange. That means that we probably forgot to unwrap something. So I'm just gonna take everything here with this stack enabled. I'm just gonna collapse it, bring up the UV editor again, and see what happens there. So it looks like these faces here on the side that we forgot to unwrap them. So I'm just gonna select the whole object again here. I'm gonna flatten map it and stitch back together these faces here that belong together. And the same needs to happen here on that side. So I'm just gonna take the whole element here as well, flatten map, and do the same thing here quickly with the stitching. And now I'm just gonna rescale it and scale it all the way down to where we had it. And that was around here. So this piece around here and that piece there, and now we just have to fiddle these two pieces somewhere else. I'm sure we still have some space somewhere. For instance, here in the magazine, we have these open elements there, so I'm just gonna leave it here. And let me just do the same thing again here. Smoothing groups from UV shells. And right click everything and collapse. Actually, that was the wrong button here. Right click, collapse all. And now we have a perfectly smooth object here that we can then bake our maps onto. But first, we have to make sure that all these green elements also finally get replaced with the unwrapped geometry. So let's start with that. So let's work our way from the stock to the front here. I'm going to select the part that we already unwrapped and I'm going to detach it. And I'm going to select it together here with the green things and isolate it. And that already reveals to us here which parts we need to still copy over to the other side and which ones not. So for instance, this here is one laid out individual piece, same as the back of the stock, which means that we can then copy that over here to that side like this and just delete the elements that we don't need. Let's make sure we don't select too much. So I'm going to delete this here. And I'm also going to delete all these back faces here. Just delete it. And now we just have to mirror it on the x-axis and snap it back to its place here. Alternatively, we could also just punch in the 0x value here and it would bring it exactly back to its place. And then we just have to select those green elements here, which are all one element. And while being here in the element mode, we can then just delete this piece already. And that shows us exactly, okay, this is done. This is the stuff that we still have left to do. And that's a pretty convenient way of working our way through this thing here. Now, the number one important thing to be aware of with this geometry that we share with the other side is that we need to push it out of our UV space. We need to put it, select everything here, press this button, and we need to put it up here by 1 digit. What that exactly means is that this here is our texture and it tiles in all ways. Like it tiles up here, it tiles up there, which means that this element here where we have the stock here, later once we bake, is also found here, but the bake will not get confused by having these UV islands down here overlaying with the other part of the stock that we actually want to bake. So in order to prevent that 3D Max thinks, oh, I have to bake this twice, even though it's only supposed to be one piece here, we need to push that out of our UV space. So that's the one thing that we have to do for everything that we copy over. And let's continue with those screws here. Let's take those 2 screws here. I'm going to copy them over or clone to object. That's what I'm going to do with them. And I will replace them here with those green screws that we also put there earlier that we want to share. Gotta scale it up a little bit. And then just delete the green screw. I'm going to do the same here with this one. Let me put this here. And that looks good there. Let's just delete also the green parts there. And let's make sure it's really in place. Over here it isn't, so I'm gonna put it up here. And let's do the same thing over here where we also still have another green screw. Just gonna rotate that here by 90 degrees and put it here in place. And I'm going to delete the green screw. And now we just have to also select them again. Going to attach this here. And let's just go in element mode again. Select these particular screws here. Bring up the UV editor dialog. Select everything and also push them out of the UV space by 1. So now they're up here as well. Later we're going to attach everything together, but for now let's just work like that. And I'm going to continue here with a pistol stock, detach it, and make a copy, which I then mirror. And now we just have to delete those faces here on that part, because we already have them as unique individual bit there. Delete it and bring it back to 0. Select the green stuff and in element mode delete that here. And then we can take that element that we just brought over here to that side and do the same thing here with it. Select it and bring it out of our UV space by 1. Collapse. And that would leave us with those here. Let's make this selection here on the other side. Element mode. I'm going to detach this here and take it together with the green bits. Isolation mode, and let's see what exactly it is that we need to copy over. And that would be all that here that shows red. So I'm going to do the same thing here, copy it over to the other side, mirror it. And in that case, the pivot is a little confused, so I'm just gonna individually snap it here where it belongs. Go back here to our green selection and in element mode, just delete all the parts that we don't need anymore. And I'm going to attach it back here, but don't worry for it now. Like we have some parts. Like I attached this, I didn't attach this yet. It's not mandatory right now. We're just gonna do that later. Weld everything and attach it how it belongs. For now, all that matters is that we bring these bits that we copy over to the other side out of our UV space by 1 every time. And next is the magazine. Also gonna detach it here. And isolation mode. And let's look at it from the front perspective. Let's select our unwrapped geometry and select all the faces. And then let's switch to the face mode here. And just deselect everything that we don't need. Like these faces here, which we already have as individual UV islands. And everything else, let's make sure that we don't copy anything over that we already have. For instance, we already have this here on that side, which means I can deselect it here on that side. Same goes for that face here. And we also already have these faces going in here, so we can just deselect them here on that side. And everything else we can now take and copy over to the other side and mirror it. And now let's just snap it to where it belongs here. Let me take my green selection and just delete all the green bits that we don't need. And that leaves us with the magazine. So now we just have to open the unwrap editor again, select everything and also bring it out of our UV space by 1. All the way up there. And let's continue with the handguard. And that should be pretty straightforward because that piece here is really just a copy sliced in half. So I'm going to detach it as a clone. And let me select this clone here and then just mirror it over to the other side. Make sure it doesn't say copy here or else we have multiple geometry. We just want to bring over the clone. And that leaves us here with the handguard. I'm just going to delete the green bits. Copy it over here. And let's do the same thing here for these bits. Let's see what we got there. Let me detach this here and isolate it with the green bits so we see what's happening here. So we want to have all these faces here and those faces. Also these ones here. And here on the front. Everything else is already unwrapped, so that means we can then just detach it as a clone. It's always complicated to select a clone sometimes. We have it selected now, so I'm just gonna mirror it over again. And delete the green bits that we don't need anymore. And then same as always, just open up the UV editor and bring it out by 1 here. And next let me work here on the rear side. So I'm going to detach the rear side, not as a clone. Just detach it like this and also take it together with the green bits so that we see what it is that we really need here. And in that case, let's bring up the UV editor because we already have these pieces here as individual shells. So I can then just quickly make a selection for it here. See where it is. This piece is down here and that piece is this one. So I'm going to make multiple selections on the stuff that we want to copy over. Same applies here to this element. Just gonna select it as well. And with this selection active, I will then collapse the UV editor, press polygon, and it remembers our selection from the UV. So then we just have to copy it over. Alternatively, you could just again detach as a clone. There are always multiple ways. So let's just then take this piece here and snap it to where it belongs. And again, let's delete the green bits. Now I also want to do the same thing here for this bit. But first, let's take it and bring it out here by 1. And now this bit here, actually in that case I'm gonna detach it as a clone and mirror it over here. And then again, green selection, delete that. And bring it out by 1 as well. And next would be this element here. Going to detach it. And same as always, select it with the green bits. And let me also bring up the UV editor for it. Let's see where our faces are hiding here that we already unwrapped. This element and also this one here, as well as this bit and this bit and these ones here. Okay, I'm gonna collapse this. Copy, mirror, and snap. Delete, and bring out of the UV space. And as a last thing, let's do this here for the front side. But one thing I want to do first, I want to connect these edges here because I think there will be some problems otherwise when we bake the normal map very soon. So I'm just gonna make some connections here. And other than that, let's also bring up the UV editor again. We zoom in here. And let's just select this whole element. That is all that we need. So I'm gonna clone it and mirror it and then also snap it. Perfect. And that, now I just have to select this green bit here, and that is the last element that we had to copy over. Let's not forget here to bring it out of the UV space. And that basically concludes the unwrapping. That is basically it here. Or actually I lied, guys, I'm really sorry. Let's select everything and let's collapse it. And let's right click it, convert to editable poly. And now in the vertex mode, let's hit Ctrl A and let's weld it with a threshold of 0.01. So now this really welded everything back together here, like all these elements that we just copied over here to the other sides. But the one thing that we still have to do is these bits, if you remember them, those awkward bits that we had here on the side the whole time. So what we want to do with them is these ones here, for instance, which were part of these metal elements here. I'm gonna put them right here onto this other piece, which was this one here. Gonna lay them out here, scale them back. Oh, I scaled something here that I didn't want to scale. Let me just make sure I really only select these ones here, okay. And now we're just gonna put them in here one by one. Let me just make sure I got the right selection here. So I just lay it out so that it fits almost in there. Do the same thing for this piece. Doesn't have to be perfect, but these two bits here in the inside are the ones that we just want to overlay with the big piece. So now also we just need to bring it out by one, put it up there. And as for that piece here, that's what we wanted to share here with this element. So I'm just gonna take it and put it right here around there. Looks good. And I'm going to also put it up by one. And here's the very important piece of the barrel, this element here. So let's make sure we also have this one here. And I'm going to make a selection here in vert, and with the snapping, if you click this guy here, we can then just perfectly snap it where it sort of belongs. And then in the freeform mode, let's just scale it here. So that's basically vert on vert. Zoom in there. Let's make sure we really got that. There we go. So now I just want to make sure that this face here is not exactly overlaying with this one, and it already is the case that this information here is found then on that side here when you look at this guy. Sorry if that's confusing. Like again, if we have a scratch here, then this scratch will not appear exactly here, which would look repetitive, but it will then appear here on that side. So that's something that's exactly what we want, basically. So now we just have to select this here again, let's not forget. And let me quickly check what that is. Okay, I don't want to have this piece here selected as well. So I'm just gonna make a selection here for that piece of the barrel and also bring it out by one. And one last thing that I always like to do at the end of the unwrapping is to hit the reset X form on our geometry. So with a low poly selected like that, I'm going to utilities, and then you find reset X form here. So just select this and then say reset selected. And what that does is that it puts a modifier, an X form modifier, on top of our geometry, which will reveal if we have any faces that are flipped inside out. For that, make sure that backface cull is enabled, or else you won't see it. But in that case, it seems everything is perfectly fine on our low poly. And that means we can then just delete that thing again here or collapse it. Now I also want to make the same test for our high poly. And I'm going to select everything again. And actually, let me take that selection and let's make a copy, because I don't want to mess it up. Since it's so many different elements, it will then all get a reset X form modifier and it's hard to get it off there again. So here the copy in isolation mode. And I also press reset selected. And that here doesn't look very good. That means we have some flip faces here indeed. And also here on that side. Those two elements here, we need to take it and flip it back. Everything else seems to be fine from what I see here. No flip things other than those two. So that means I can then just delete this selection again, go to the problematic part that we spotted here. We go in the orthographic view. And with this piece selected, what I need to do is take our two modifiers on top of it, right click them and cut them so that we're only left with our editable poly geometry. And I'm gonna apply the reset select modifier again, which then flips it like that. And now we can collapse this. And then here in the element mode, select everything and flip it. So now we can bring back our modifiers and we are left with perfect geometry. Otherwise we will get problems if we bake the normal map because there won't be any information since it's flipped. But now we flipped it back basically. I'm gonna do the same thing here on that piece, which we also know has problems. So I cut the modifiers out, reset X form, I have a shortcut for it, and flip it. And paste that back. And that looks really good to me here. Nothing wrong with it. Let's go back to the low poly. And the only thing here on the low poly that I can see strangely is that this element here again seems to have the same smoothing group as this one. Let me just double check that. It has one here and it has one here. So in that case, I'm just gonna make a ring selection on that and give it a different smoothing group. As simple as that. And that means that we are done with the unwrapping. And you might be surprised how long it took us to get to that point. The unwrapping is definitely a very time-consuming piece of work, but unfortunately it's essential, it's necessary. There's no way around it. And a sloppy job on this doesn't bring us any further. Like, our texture will definitely benefit from our tight packing that we have here, and it will make this shine. So if you've been watching this tutorial and following it so far, I'm really proud of you because it's been a lot of hard work. And in the next chapter, we will then take our low poly and our high poly and prepare it for the actual baking part. And we're gonna also try a new method that I just recently learned myself. It's purely based on Substance Painter baking. It has its own integrated baking method, and it's really awesome and superior to how I did it in the past. How exactly it works, I'll tell you in the next chapter. I'll see you there.